Malan's big bat was shockingly exposed.
A new, massive flying-wing aircraft has been spotted at Malan Air Force Base. Many people are speculating, could this be the H-20 stealth bomber? Personally, I don't think so. This looks more like a long-endurance unmanned reconnaissance aircraft. Why? Because for a bomber, you need a sufficiently long fuselage to house internal weapons bays. Even if it's not carrying something as large as a ballistic missile like the one slung under an H-6, it should at least be able to carry cruise missiles like the Tomahawk, which is over 6 meters long. That means the internal bay would need to be at least 6, maybe even 7 meters in length. But looking at this aircraft next to nearby structures, especially that football field, it's clear that the Malan bat isn't very long. So that rules out any chance of it being a true bomber with a long internal bay. So based on this, it's pretty safe to say it's not a bomber. It's a recon bird. Some people wonder, could it be manned? I personally find that unlikely. Here's why. Judging from nearby buildings, this thing's wingspan is actually larger than the B-21's, and it's close to the B-2, possibly even bigger. The B-2 has a wingspan of 52.4 meters, but the Malan bat's fuselage is clearly shorter. This gives it an extremely high aspect ratio, long wings, short body. That usually means it's built for endurance. So what does that mean? Long flight durations, very long, likely over 30 hours. That's something a human pilot just can't handle. There are also academic papers describing high altitude, stealthy, long-endurance UAVs with a similar aerodynamic design. The Malan bat likely fits that description. So to sum up so far, it's stealthy, long-range, and definitely unmanned. Now, about its range. Some folks are wondering, could the Malan bat actually reach Hawaii? Well, Hawaii is over 8,000 kilometers from mainland China. A round trip would be just under 17,000 kilometers. Honestly, I think people are being too conservative. Let's do a quick comparison. The US RQ-4 Global Hawk has a wingspan of only 39.9 meters and an aspect ratio of 25. The higher the aspect ratio, the better the lift-to-drag ratio, and the further you can go on the same amount of fuel. And visually, the Malan bat clearly has an even higher aspect ratio than the Global Hawk. Also, flying wing designs like this naturally have a higher lift-to-drag ratio. Remember the B-47 versus the British Vulcan bomber. Even though the Vulcan only had a lift-to-drag ratio of 3.0, it performed similarly. Though the Vulcan only had a lift-to-drag ratio of 3.0, it performed similarly to the B-47, which had a whopping 9.4 aspect ratio. Now back to the Global Hawk. It already has a range of 22,000 kilometers, nearly 23,000. So if the Malan that has a better aspect ratio and better lift-to-drag ratio than the Global Hawk, then a range of 30,000 kilometers, or even 40,000, is not out of the question. Not only could it loiter above Hawaii for hours, it could probably circle over the US West Coast and still be fine. Another thing, generally, the wider the wingspan, the higher the service ceiling. The Malan bat may well fly higher than the legendary U-2 spy plane, which cruises at 24,000 meters. So yeah, the Malan bat might hit 30,000 meters. And that altitude, that's right at the limit of most American surface-to-air missiles. Most US SAM systems top out at around 27,000 meters. So in that case, America's in a tough spot. And considering the current state of the US defense industry, developing a SAM that can hit 30,000 meters. Yeah, that's not happening anytime soon, even if they somehow pull it off. With congressional support from the likes of Commissioner Smith, the price will be astronomical. Mass deployment may be in the next century. So yeah, the appearance of the Malan bat is a big deal, and from what we've seen so far, it's not just stealthy from all angles, it's stealthy across ultra-wide frequency bands. Its broadband stealth capability surpasses anything China has shown so far. Add in its massive size and its ultra-clean aerodynamic shape, basically only 2 angles on the whole body, and even VHF band radar will struggle to detect it. Maybe only decameter wave radars, those with wavelengths over 10 meters, could do the job. But the US doesn't really have those, and even if they did, those are ground-based systems. No way you're mounting that kind of radar on a ship. So what does that mean for the US military? They can't see the Malan bat, and they sure can't shoot it down. Now consider America's so-called second island chain. It's pretty sparse when it comes to military bases. Once the Malan bat breaks through the first island chain, it's pretty much free to roam the skies. It could track US aircraft carrier strike groups for extended periods, or loiter over time-sensitive targets for real-time recon. Its ability to track and pinpoint targets would far surpass that of overhead reconnaissance satellites, which have to pass over the area at the right time. And with all aspect, broadband stealth and an elusive flight profile, the Malan bat would be way more survivable than those non-stealthy, fixed-orbit satellites. Compare that with the older WZ-8. That one required satellite coordination and relied on pure speed. Its speed made it hard to intercept, thanks to its rocket propulsion. The upside, it flew fast and high. The downside, it flew too fast. That meant it could only perform target confirmation, not continuous tracking. And that insane speed made its infrared signature huge, easy for enemies to spot. Once it's discovered, the enemy has time to prepare a response. That's nowhere near as intimidating as the Malan bat. Now picture this: a stealth drone like the Malan bat, capable of loitering over Hawaii, the US West Coast, or even the Panama Canal for hours, undetected. That would seriously spook any enemy fleet or time-sensitive asset. They'd know something's watching, but not where it is. And if this thing is paired with DF-26 or DF-27 anti-ship missiles, or even a future DF-3X with similar capabilities, let's just say, the US won't be risking it. As for speed, don't expect the Malan bat to be slow. The US Global Hawk has a top speed of 629 kilometers per hour and a cruising speed of about 570 kilometers per hour. That's with an aspect ratio of 25, giving it excellent subsonic lift-to-drag performance. And it only needs a single 34 knots turbofan engine to keep it flying. Now compare that with the U-2 spy plane. It's faster and heavier, but its aspect ratio is only 10, so it needs a 76 knots engine to do the job. So for the Malan bat, which has a much higher aspect ratio and lift-to-drag ratio than the Global Hawk, a 30 kN class turbofan, like the Chinese WS-16, would be more than enough. If we wanted to go even faster, there are also options like the WS-21 or non-afterburning WS-10. Now, about weapons, personally, I don't think this bird will carry any. Not air-to-air, not air-to-ground. Why? Because carrying and firing weapons would compromise its range. And worse, it would expose its location. That defeats the purpose. The Malan bat is just one piece of a next-generation combat system. Let the specialized weapons do the shooting. And remember, America's RQ-180, roughly the same size, also has no weapons bay. Even if the Malan bat does get a bay in the future, it's unlikely to house missiles. More likely, it'll carry low observable expendable drones to boost its situational awareness. To wrap things up, the Malan bat is set to become a key component of China's next-generation combat architecture. Working alongside future aircraft like the J-36, J-50, the H-20 bomber, and loyal wingman-style drones, it could essentially push US forces not just out of the second island chain, but possibly out of the third as well. That also means it'd be far more effective when paired with strike capabilities.